Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and right now I should be up in my studio making some more Halloween masks for you, and I'm not. One reason is I'm trying really hard to get my house kind of put back together so that I can put it up for sale. I wanted to get it done before it started snowing, and I just don't think I'm going to make it, but I'm trying really hard. And the other reason is because I realized just this morning that I've already made the mask that is probably most appropriate for this particular October, and that would be the Plague Doctor mask that I put in my mask book. It's a very serious thing, but it looks funny, and so it seemed like a good way to lighten up just a little bit for Halloween. I think that Halloween was originally a way for us to get in touch with our mortality, to kind of celebrate the continuity of life, and this I think is in keeping with that spirit. Hopefully you won't think it's callous. You'll let me know in the comments down below if you do, I'm sure. But let me show you how this was made.
As you can see here, my masks are usually made with Super Sculpey or some other form of modeling clay over a mask form. And because the Super Sculpey was really hard to pull away from the plastic mask form, it just sort of hangs on for some reason. I have a tendency to put that plastic over the mask form first, and that makes it easier to take the clay away from the mask form and then pull off the paper mache. For this particular mask, I think that was actually not needed because there's very little clay involved. And also, I've been using plastilina lately, just some really cheap stuff that I bought off of Amazon because because it's cheap, no other reason. It works just as well as the Super Sculpey, and so I recommend that you use it instead. To get those forms, I crumpled up some aluminum foil and stuck it onto the mask form with some clay, and then covered that with a very thin sheet of the Super Sculpey or plastilina, whichever one you're using. The spectacles were made with ropes of clay, and I did measure just to make sure that the dips in the mask form were actually going to be in the same place as my actual eyes. I want to be sure that when I'm wearing this mask I'll be able to see out. I also used a rope around the edge just to define how far out the paper mache should go, so that I'll have a nice even edge all the way around the edge of the mask. Then I added 3 layers of blue shop towels and the fast setting paste. I've discovered recently that you can also make paste out of a mixture of joint compound and white glue if you happen to live in a country where those products are easy to get hold of. Make sure that you leave your mask in front of a fan or in a nice warm spot for probably several days. You want to make sure that it's completely solid before you take it off of that form. Once it's completely dry, pull it off of the mask form, and then in order to get the clay and aluminum foil out, you'll need to split the beak down the bottom. That's the place where the seam is least likely to show. Pull out everything out. You'll need some sort of tool to very carefully push things in one direction or another. Take your time, be very careful with it, and then when you put it back together, you can use a rubber band to hold it in place while another thin sheet of paper mache is drying and covering up that seam. Once that seam is nice and dry, you can trim off any little bumps and trim off the extra paper mache that is hanging over the edges of your mask. And this is also a really good time to make some holes for your ribbons so that you can keep the mask on your face. And then you'll want to use at least one more layer of the paste as gesso to completely cover the mask, make it nice and smooth, and allow that to dry. Once that's done, if you're using the plaster-based fast setting paste, you'll need to use a little bit of sandpaper to get the final smoothness that you want. I like to use the foam-backed sandpaper because it's really easy to use and it's nice and flexible. If you're using the paste made out of joint compound and glue, there's no real recipe for it. Just mix the two together until you get something that works really well for you. When that dries, you can actually smooth it off with a damp sponge, and then you don't have any little particles of the paste floating around in the air. It's a lot easier that way. Either way will work. You can use as many layers of gesso as you need to in order to make the mask as smooth as you want it to go. And once that's done, it's time to paint the little fellow. You can use the colors that I did that are rather cheerful. I'm not really sure that's in keeping with the theme, but it looked nice on my wall. I like to keep my masks on my wall, so that's why I used the orange and the yellow. It just happened to fit in with where he was going to be displayed. If you want something a little bit creepier and scarier, you might want to go with raven colors, just make him a really deep bluish black. Or even better, go out and do a Google for plague doctor mask and see how many other color combinations have been used by other artists. You can do some amazing things with this mask, and a lot of people have done it. They're out on the Google image search. It'd be very easy to find them and get some inspiration that way. I did use a little bit of red right around the inside of those spectacles just because it helped to mimic the red glass lenses that were used in the traditional masks back in the 17th and 18th centuries.
Now I know that I went through that all rather quickly, but I will leave links right down below so that you'll be able to find all 3 videos for the Pantaloni mask that show you the process of actually putting those blue shop towels and the fast setting paste on your mask. It's just a really nice process because it's very light but still a little bit flexible, so you end up with a really comfortable mask. You can also, if you would prefer, look at my most recent video on how to make a portrait mask. That has all the information in also, but it just happens to be all in one place instead of the 3 videos. So I'll put links to both of those down below so that you can easily find them. So I hope you have fun this Halloween and don't get too scared, okay? I'll see you next time. Come visit me, ultimatepapermache.com.